What is up, everybody? It is me, DevilNeverCry, and we are back with a weapon guide for Vergil and DMC5 SE, this time covering the Mirage Edge, the spectral version of the Force Edge that Vergil utilized in DMC3 SE and DMC4 SE. As always with these videos, we're going to go over the moveset, I'm going to go over the inputs, and I'm going to give you a few little tips so you can hit that SSS rank during gameplay. So without further ado, let's dive right in. We're going to start things off with the ground combo strings for the Mirage Edge here, starting off with Combo A. This is 3 melee inputs. Ends in a little bit of a mini stinger there. What's pretty cool about this is that this weapon hits multiple times because Vergil dual wields both the Yamato and the Mirage Edge in this combat style, which is it's pretty cool to see. That leads us on to Combo B. Combo B is 2 melee inputs followed by a delay, followed by some mashing, some literal mashing. This allows you to hit a lot of enemies at once, especially if they're crowded around, because this move, or this combo string, has a massive or wide hitbox, I should say. Ending in that pirouette there, which is pretty cool. You can see that in one of a couple of Vergil cutscenes, in fact, that mid-air pirouette. But what's cool about this move is that you can actually judgment cut the final hit for it, and the game will automatically switch to the Yamato for you, which is pretty cool to see. All you have to do is press and hold during the pirouette. And as you can see, I'm now using the Yamato. I didn't even have to switch weapons, the game just did it for me. Now, you don't have to do a perfect judgment cut, it could just simply be a standard judgment cut, allowing you to sort of practice, get your timing down if you want to get those perfect judgment cuts. But back to the Mirage Edge. So that covers it for Vergil's ground combo strings. Let's move on to some of the other attacks that Vergil has to his disposal. Starting with high time. If you lock on, hit left, or hit back, should I say, sorry, on the analog stick, and then the melee input, Vergil will hit enemy with a launcher. You can press and hold the melee input, by the way, to rise with the enemy. Now, I should stress that when I say back, I do mean relative to whatever direction Vergil is facing. For example, here Vergil is facing the right hand side and his back is to the left. So if I want a high time, I'm going to have to hit left on the analog stick. Next up in Vergil's repertoire of moves is the Stinger, a move that many of us are probably guilty of spamming, especially when first playing these games. Standard simple move, hold lock on, forward on the left analog stick, and then the melee input, and Vergil will just charge forward and strike the enemy. A staple from Dante's moveset. What's cool though is that if you press and hold the melee input, Vergil will go into a million stab. If you want to extend this, after pressing and holding, just start mashing the melee button. Now eventually Vergil's arm will get tired and he'll end the million stab by himself, so you can't million stab for infinity, but if you want to get more hits in, just keep mashing. That also brings us to the aerial stinger, or the air stinger. Exact same input as the ground stinger, except just done in mid-air. You can, of course, do it from a trick, you can do it from a jump, you can do it from an enemy step. Nice way to close the distance aerially as well, or if you want to throw enemies, perhaps away from some other enemies, you know, divide and conquer, that whole thing. You can high time and then stinger them, follow up by a trick, and then you can just combo to your heart's content. Well, that brings us to the drive and overdrive ability for Vergil, which is tied to the lock-on, back to forward, and melee inputs. Vergil will essentially throw out 2 projectiles from the Mirage Edge, which allow him to launch the enemy. Now, this attack does have some decent range to it, but do take note that if you're too far away, the attack will not hit. You can also follow the drive mechanic up, or the quick drive as it is, with the overdrive mechanic by inputting an extra melee input and holding it. Now what's cool about this is that it has 3 levels of charge, with the weapon flashing to display the different levels of charge. This attack will track in a direct straight line, so if you hit some enemies with some hyper armor during the initial drive and they don't get stunned and they end up dodging sideways, the overdrive will not hit them. Just do take note of that. Of course, you can get up to all sorts of shenanigans by hitting them from the other side whilst they're done with the Overdrive. Some of you might remember that move from DMC4 SE, but that input was largely different. Before we move on to SDT, Vergil does have the round trip, which is simply done by pressing and holding the melee input and then letting the weapon go. Now again, what's cool about this is that it has a magnetic property to it. It will pull enemies in towards its center, even if they're not initially hit by the weapon, as you can see. You can call the weapon back prematurely though by tapping the melee input again. Though, if you do want to, you can let the round trip out, and then you can switch to another weapon, allowing you to get double the damage. And that finally brings us to the Sin double trigger version of the Mirage Edge. Just like Beowulf, this weapon does have some different combo enders to it, which are pretty cool. So let's start off with the first combo that has been adjusted. Combo A, as you can see there, has an extra hit to it at the end. He seems to go for 2 little mini stingers, throwing the enemy away in the process. Then we have Combo B. Vergil seems to go into more of a frenzy and does an even larger pirouette, which seems to hit a lot more times, allowing the enemy to be hit with an even greater ground bounce at the end, allowing you to follow up with whatever attacks you want. And finally, we come to everyone's favorite move with this weapon, aptly named the Deep Stinger. You won't imagine how many times people have laughed every time this name is said. There's something interesting about going into a Deep Stinger and then finally finishing off with a raw release, as people like to say. This move is done by locking on, holding forward on the analog stick, then hitting the melee and trick inputs at the same time. Now of course you have to have either a full SDT bar and level 2 concentration, or be in SDT and have at least level 2 concentration. Regardless, you're going to need a lot of concentration for this move. It's pretty cool because if you lock on, it will just track the enemy and finish off with a stylish swipe there. Or if you want to freeform it, you can not lock on and you can just Deep Stinger far away from the enemy. And that pretty much wraps it up for the Mirage Edge and its moveset. Some tips for attaining a SSS rank during gameplay. Be sure to make use of the drive ability constantly. It's got a massive hitbox, and if you hit multiple enemies at once, it will skyrocket your style. Be sure to use it to launch as well, as opposed to just simply using high time. Make sure you also make good use of the round trip. As previously mentioned, you can throw it out and then switch to other weapons so you can wail away at your heart's content. And it goes without saying that if you use a Deep Stinger on a set of enemies clumped together regardless of difficulty, the fact that it does so much damage and hits multiple times will be sure to boost your style rank. But that's pretty much going to be it for this video and guide. Of course, if you enjoyed the video, do be sure to leave a like and consider subscribing. That way you stay up to date with anything and everything DevilNeverCry, and you can hit that notification bell and you'll be alerted every time a new video is put up. If there is anything in the comment section that I haven't covered, or if I've missed anything out in this video, do be sure to let me know. And with all that said and done, it has been me, DevilNeverCry. I'd like to thank all of you for watching, and as always, I'll see you all next video.